Good day, friends. Welcome to Gord's Poetry Show, number 42. Yes, we really are climbing up there. In about 5 years, we'll have reached our 100th. That sounds arduous, doesn't it? The Canadian poet, long-standing Canadian poet, D.G.Jones, passed recently. I believe known to his friends as Doug Jones, and published his first book in 1957 and continued on throughout the decades, giving us much fine verse, much fine and unique verse. Today I would like to celebrate his contribution by reading from the anthology 15 Canadian Poets ×3, edited by the ubiquitous Gary Geddes, who has done many fine anthologies. It seems to me I used one in school when I first arrived in Canada. Anyway, I notice in his introduction to his selection of Jones's poems, he quotes a passage from Jones' critical book Butterfly on Rock, which he says is both an acute comment on the state of poetry in Canada, that's 2001, and a useful summary of Jones's own poetic development. Having reached the Pacific, Canadians have begun to turn back on themselves to create that added dimension Teilhard de Chardin calls the noosphere. More than ever before, we have arrived at a point where we recognize not only that the land is ours, but that we are the land's. Good one. Portrait of Anne Hébert. The sunlight, here and there, touches a table, and a draught at the window announces your presence. You will take your place in the room without fuss. Your delicate bones, your frock, have the grace of disinterested passion. Words are arrayed like surgical instruments, neatly in trays. Deftly, you make an incision, probing the obscure disease. Your sensibility has the sure fingers of the blind. Each decision cuts like a scalpel through tangled emotion. You define the morbid tissue, laying it bare like a tatter of lace, dark on the paper. Beautiful creatures, brief as these. Like butterflies but lately come from the long cocoons of summer, these little girls start back to school to swarm the sidewalks, playing fields, and litter air with color. So slight they look within their clothes, their dresses looser than the sulphur's wings. It seems that even if the wind alone were not to break them in the lofty trees, they could not bear the weight of things. And yet they cry into the morning air and hang from railings upside down and laugh, as though the world were theirs, and all its buildings, trees, and stones were toys, were gifts of the benignant sun. Summer is a poem by Ovid. The fire falls, the night grows more profound. The music is composed of clear words and silence. We become clear and simple as the forms of music. We are dumb as water mirroring the stars. Then summer is Ovidian, and every sun is but a moth evolving in the large gloom. An excerpt from Ars Amoris. Flame is no more fleeting than the limbs of boy and girl. The conflagration is the same. While the fire falls and night grows more profound, the flesh, the music, and the flame all undergo metamorphosis. The sounds of music make a close. So with our several selves together until silence shall compose all but the ashes in the pale dawn, and even those. Thank you, D.G.Jones. Bon voyage. Laura Clarke seems her first book, as far as I can tell, published by ECW, Decline of the Animal Kingdom, is now with us. Seems to be very new, 2016 I would guess. And I have picked out some fun poems to read. Decline of the Animal Kingdom, it's called. This poem is called Address to Husky and Fire Hydrant. Scruffy husky, tied to fire hydrant with dollar store rhinestone collar. Which way to the bingo hall? I'm just a pair of legs marching past an army of slow-walking teen moms in need of clear directions. Just a flashing scowl glimpsed in the corner of a driver's eye at a red light. Strands of hair pulled out and left behind on a park bench the moment the temperature hit +2. Shoelaces neatly braided and looped around a pigeon's soft neck. The 7-Elevens are closing down around me. The laundromat closes at 9, not 10, and the adult movie theater's third Neon X burnt out 5 days ago. The bikers gathering on the same night in the same Tim Hortons parking lot for 8 years is the sense of comfort I've been seeking all along. The women playing bingo past midnight in the yellowing artificial light will never age as long as they remain there, winning. Materials for a memoir on animal locomotion. A little quote from George Adamson to begin. There are 2 things in life I cannot do without. One is whiskey and the other is Worcestershire sauce. Joy is neither. It's natural to make to-do lists in the wild. Friday, tighten muscles, drink 8 glasses of water, teach tautology to lions. Wednesday, stalk prey, floss teeth, go into town for liquor. Time, of course, is sun and mud and greasy tendons, no matter how many watches you stash in a tin cup. Lists were made for the jungle. Paper the proper barometer for human behavior in all elements. Super cute when dragged down by currents. Curls up submissively in extreme heat. Like you, the leopard's lists are concerned with mating, hunting, social activities. Rip off boy's left hand between 1 and 4 p.m. on Thursday. Add to your list laundry, meditation, boiling water. Add to your list acquire mouthguard, hand paint lists and preserve under glass. Boy, girl, gone wild. Sunday, attack visiting family member or personal assistant. Like you, the leopard wants it rougher and rougher each time. Tuesday, escalate desire to the point where completion becomes impossible. Scan the list of things I can't live without. Whiskey and Worcester sauce. You are neither. Add to that list weekend company, invisible ink. Add to that list natural disasters, dust. Born free, a lioness of two worlds. Find me down by the river babbling lion-related puns to a lion. You're the main event, baby. Seeds look ugly as ever planted in a row. All fur, all arguments, all the time. The sun is always so orange on Tuesdays. Instinct looks so strange written in crayon. One time somewhere a lion jumped 36 feet horizontally. You want to be odd. I feel you. Laura Clarke. We've read from Suzanne Buffam's books, I think 2 or 3 times now, but I could be wrong. I'm getting a little senile. Can't count very well anymore. Can't think very well anymore. This is her, I believe, second book from Anansi, Past Imperfect, from a few years ago, 2005. Yeah, she's probably got a new one. They always do, these poets. They're always putting out new books. Past Imperfect is the title. Open Water is the poem. In the dream I have been fatally wounded by a shark and wake up to discover I have only been seriously maimed. Another piece of good news is delivered in the form of a tiny green bug that circles my head and flies off in the general direction of spring. I vow then and there to take action before it takes me. The morning gives back my face, wide-eyed and bulbous, swimming upside down in the bowl of my spoon. I build a raft in the basement out of blankets and string. My friends all think I'm in Texas, which, in a way, I am. Happiness is not the only happiness. My hair has grown well past my shoulders. A feat I achieved by not cutting it. Also this year I have learned something new about daylight. It keeps us awake. Likewise the moonlight, the searchlight, the low blue glow on the dashboard that carries each through her own private dark. Rue is a sun-loving plant. Tornadoes want us to chase them. When summer finally arrives, it arrives in a rainstorm. Wind enters the spruce and comes out wearing sparrows. Some say water tastes best from a bucket. Some say a cupped palm. Quite like the water in this mug here. Life with folded umbrella. That's something I've been carrying around a lot these last couple of weeks, folded umbrellas. Neither rain nor shine for days, and everywhere the grey grains linger on the sill, green fidgetings of things not yet reclaimed. All summer we sat in its generous shade and watched the plot we'd planted come into its own slow going. We didn't think to thank it for its role, so deftly and discreetly played out on the bare stage of the deck. Now the wide white canvas canopy is folded on its pole. I sit behind the windows and consider how it fits into the simple triptych of their frames. Set off a little to the left and taller than the staggered aspens in the background, and beyond, along the ridge of cordgrass and blue asters, on the slip of island that divides the glassy salt marsh from the tides, the shaggy shelvings of the pines, now ponderous and drab, now springing swiftly into business with a sudden lift of wind. It nearly fills the center pane. It makes a simple shape against the grains, now furrowed like the folds of snow-draped fields, where what you see is not so much the story going forward as the space the story clears for what comes next. Thank you, Suzanne. Paul Vermeersch. Been meaning to read some of his work for quite a few months now. Here we have a volume called The Invention. Oh, my mistake. The Reinvention of the Human Hand. From McClellan and Stewart, I believe. But when? 2010. Bosch Landscape, 2010, for Stuart Ross. Discovered during the restoration of St. John's Cathedral, it depicts 6 hills on fire and their reflections in the eyes of spooked horses. The sky is smoke. The trees beyond the town are smoke, their branches like white hands clamoring for air, leafless, impotent. Strange creatures, bizarre chimeras, flee the disaster and flood the square, startling the townspeople. The faces of the dispossessed are doubled in a tower of mirrors, cod face and rabbit face, blackbird face and owl, coincides to one another, holding closed books. A throng of ice skaters with outsized ears are racing around a ruined wooden church. They play lutes made of mussel shells and toss golden keys into a river of pitch. It's a parable of corruption, the experts say, and a warning against the decline of reason. Hell on earth, they say, is ignorance. The fires of ignorance, Bosch says, they say, are burning all around us, and their smoke conceals the corruption. They cannot explain, however, the significance of the lemurs riding the horses, or the warthog driving the blue convertible Eldorado, or why the statue of Charles Darwin holds a knife. They are stumped by the man in the boxing gloves, his face tattooed with mysterious symbols. They are flummoxed by the haloed saints and angels tearing panels from the belly of a space shuttle hurtling wildly earthward. The priests and critics just gape in wonder, with painted flames mirrored in their eyes. Yes, Bosch is ever so modern. I am happy to live in an age of plenty. There are more non-prescription painkillers now than when most of us had jobs that were strenuous or fatal. Our muscles tightened and frayed like ropes that hoist pianos. Our knuckles swelled and throbbed in time with the weather, all against the acetaminophen tide. And now we have more rounds of ammunition than when most of us, for no better reason than necessity, hunted for our meat. So many rounds of ammunition, no meat can outrun the volume of lead that we have loaded, cocked and aimed against its escape. And there are far more children now than when we lived in the desert and suffered from such loneliness we sang our psalms to the empty sky for a little bit of company. So many children born, filled with painkillers and meat, there is now one child, they say, for every round of ammunition. Old punk. His irate youth lingers in the air, It clings to his skin like the scent of a killed child, a better twin whose brilliant memory persists outside some locked and unlit box. It shines right in his eyes, weakening and aging him. With yesterday's rage dressed in yesterday's clothes, he kneels beside a friend's grave, crying, "Punk is dead! Punk is dead!" He claws at the grass, frantic for the aimless, ear-splitting riffs of his former strength. He is so angry now about Ma Bell's arrogance, about the transmission in his 8-year-old Impala, about knowing so much about death. He has forgotten how to feel it, that proud scattergun hatred. Discos, Nazis, Dad. Cloud formation like a map of the world. He's walking east toward your apartment, and behind him the salmon-colored sun is only half an hour from turning scarlet. He has the book you wanted. He's bringing you the book when high above him, between a pair of tall buildings, a map of the world unfolds. White outlines of the continents against the darkening western sky. A blueprint for the planet unrolled across the man-made table of commerce. A miracle? No. He knows the life of miracles ended when you left for the weekend and didn't return for 2 months. When you finally came back, you never looked at him the same way again. Your eyes filled with miles of desert, and you slept. Oh no, your eyes filled with miles of desert sand, and you slept. That was the end of miracles, but now he's found the book you wanted, the one filled with one man's love and art, with New York City and statuary, and yes, even miracles, at least the kind someone remembers believing in, though now they've been refuted, mauled by the passage of time, the savage economics of collapse, the way that Africa now dissolves into a shapeless mass as he walks between the silver-plated towers of the debt collectors, the way that Europe has been taffy-pulled by invisible high-altitude winds into a long white ribbon that resembles nothing anymore. And now it's gone. Obliterated. No miracle at all, just a trick of light and vapor. But he has the book you wanted, its pages filled with emergencies and joy, and not even the fleeting passing of the world, its sudden destruction before his eyes, will keep him from delivering it to you. Now that's dedication. Anne Carson. Also had a bit of trouble with Anne Carson's work. Sometimes doesn't make much sense to me at all. It's a classic case of that modern disease where being clever is held aloft over being beautiful, in my humble opinion. But I am pleased to say that her second book, Short Talks, has been reissued by Brick Books of London, Ontario, and it has a fine selection of short talks on almost a random selection of subjects. Here's one, short talk on Van Gogh. The reason I drink is to understand the yellow sky, the great yellow sky, said Van Gogh. When he looked at the world, he saw the nails that attach colors to things, and he saw that the nails were in pain. Short talk on rectification. Kafka liked to have his watch an hour and a half fast. Felice kept setting it right. Nonetheless, for 5 years they almost married. He made a list of arguments for and against marriage, including inability to bear the assault of his own life, and the sight of the nightshirts laid out on his parents' beds at 10:30. against. Hemorrhage saved him. When advised not to speak by doctors in the sanatorium, he left glass sentences all over the floor. Felice, says one of them, had too much nakedness left in her. Short talk on Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot is on the prowl. What does she want? A slave to satisfy her hungers and make beautiful photographs? Whose slave is it? She does not care. She never blames herself. Using oil, she will make the slave shine. Perfect. La folie, she will think to herself. Short talk on the rules of perspective. A bad trick, mistake, dishonesty. These are the views of Brock. Why? Brock rejected perspective. Why? Someone who spends his life drawing profiles will end up believing that man has one eye, Brock felt. Brock wanted to take full possession of objects. He has said as much in published interviews. Watching the small, shiny panes of the landscape recede out of his grasp filled Brock with loss, so he smashed them. Nature morte, said Brock. Short talk on Parmenides. One of them Greek fellas, I think. We pride ourselves on being civilized people. Yet what if the names for things were utterly different? Italy, for example. I have a friend named Andreas, an Italian. He has lived in Argentina as well as in England, and also Costa Rica for some time. Everywhere he lives, he invites people over for supper. It is a lot of work. Artichoke pasta, peaches. His deep smile never fades. What if the proper name for Italy turns out to be Bruzoi? Will Andreas continue to travel the world like a wandering moon with her borrowed light? I fear we failed to understand what he was saying or his reasons. What if every time he said cities, he meant delusion, for example? Short talk on autism. That's something I'm familiar with. I know a few people in that state. She cannot quite hear what the doctor is saying. It is a large, grey, cheerful woman. Its language is boomings, beckonings, boulders, boasts, boomerangs, bowler hats. Brother? Tell me about your brother? From the tip of its pencil, what does it eat? Light? Shriller than a rat's scream slices her back wall into what does it? Jump blue and grabs that, then cuts herself off at the root, now adrift on that wayland membrane where what does? Wander yondering all those blades of asunder. Her what? Flying off in conversation all her life and keep eat. Let's say they're at large somewhere, say Central Park, doing eat. Who knows what's damage? Eat light? Short talk on Gertrude Stein about 9:30 p.m. How curious! I had no idea. Today has ended. Oh no! Well, a little bit of Anne Carson there for you. Short talks, republished by Brick Books this year, 2015. Initially from 1992, with a quite intriguing introduction by Margaret Christakis, I might add, briefly at the end. I was going to get to The Essential Daryl Hine, edited by James Pollock, recently published by Porcupine's Quill, but we'll get to that next time. And I thank you all for watching and listening and tut-tutting and scratching your nose and getting up to make some tea and going, what did he say there? And, all that kind of interesting poetic stuff. So long, farewell, and good luck. From Gord's Poetry Show.